In Studio Beltway, welcome to the first 100 days of Donald Trump. We're in the final hours of the first 100 days. It's not like the shopping network. Nothing's going to happen. But it's always fun to mark. It is always fun to mark. Before I go into the specifics, I do have to ask, does Miami have an NBA team or have they been relegated to the G League? The Cavaliers beat the Heat last night. Are you sitting down 138 to 83? Now, I'm pretty good at math. 138 to 83 is a 55-point difference. I think the Miami Heat will be relegated. Do we relegate in the NBA? We ought to relegate in the NBA. Meanwhile, the Pacers are up 3-1 on the Bucks. The Celtics are up 3-1 on the Magic. The Knicks are up 3-1 on the Pistons. So it looks like Cavaliers, Pacers. I don't care about the West. Nobody cares, even though the Lakers are about to go down. Just thought I'd give you that update at the beginning that the Cavaliers absolutely crushed it in a 4-0 sweep. They get a couple of days off before they have to take on the Pacers. Now, it is 100 days. ICE just put out, Immigration and Customs Enforcement put out their 100-day scorecard. They've arrested 66,463 illegal aliens in that period of time. 3 out of 4 of the illegals who've been arrested have either convictions or charges pending, including 498 for murder, 9,639 for assaults, 1,329 sex offenders, 6,398 DWIs or DUIs. I would say America is considerably safer after Donald Trump's first 100 days. Now, this morning I was asked on America's Newsroom with Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino to talk about the 100 days, and this is what I had to say. Cut number 1.
For more on all of this, let's bring in Fox News contributor Hugh Hewitt. He is host of the Hugh Hewitt Show, and it is great to have you here. One of the things that's been interesting is just how the Democrats have not been able to find their footing. And every week when I do Perino on politics, I look for like a little nugget that says, oh, that's smart, that was good. And Hugh, I don't come up with anything yet. What do you think's going on there?
Well, there isn't much to come up with, Dana. Good morning, Bill and Dana. I want to say I'm very interested that Governor Pritzker went this direction in New Hampshire, comparing the Trump administration literally to the Nazis. He said the Nazis took over a constitutional republic in 3.5 weeks. And my eyebrows went up because Pritzker's a smart guy. He won a crowded primary in Illinois in 2018. He beat an incumbent Republican that year. He won re-election. He's got a lot of experience, Duke guy, Northwestern law, very smart. So when Governor Pritzker embraces incendiary rhetoric, obstruct, destroy, demonstrate, I think to myself, they really have gone rudderless. That term was used earlier in the newscast, and they are rudderless, and they're afraid of AOC. AOC is the Democratic Party. Whether it's Van Hollen or Pritzker or Gavin Newsom, they all realize that they got to beat AOC, and they're unlikely to beat AOC because she's got the energy. And I'll tell you what, that would leave me, if it was my party, in despair. But it's not my party. I'm kind of enjoying with popcorn from the sideline the wreck.
Can you think of, just to draft off Dana's question, can you think of a moment? I mean, you've got Schumer under attack because he caved into Republicans to avoid the shutdown. You got Newsom caving to transgender athletes in California. You've got the fighting oligarchy tour that was kind of hijacked by the private jet seen on the tarmac. 100 days, can you name a good one? Positive headline.
The only moment I come up with is 1972. Richard Nixon won a close 3-way race in 1968. Beat Hubert Humphrey. There was an incumbent president who withdrew, Lyndon Johnson, because of Vietnam. Nixon went on to run in 72, and the Democrats went left and nominated George McGovern because they were out of options, and they had to give their hard left a turn. And so they gave him a turn, and they got wiped out, and Nixon won the biggest landslide in history. I think Democrats are going down the same memory lane, and I'm not unhappy about that because, of course, Donald Trump can't run again, so whoever is the Republican nominee is going to be up against a hard left radical. And I know that they know what they're doing, but there are also forces that you cannot stop. Title charts, in American politics. And the tides come in and they go out. Democrats are in a tide right now that is running against them, and it's unfortunate for them. It's good for Republicans.
Wanted to ask you about this because Kamala Harris has been pretty quiet since the election, but she is going to come out and she's going to give a speech and apparently going to attack Trump as she thinks about her own political future. This was said about her that she will reflect on the enduring promise of America and issue a call to action in the face of reckless economic policies and the urgent and escalating crises facing America's institutions and global leadership. And while it is true President Trump's approval ratings right now at the first 100 days are maybe lower than they would like them to be, the people who think the country is going in the right direction now compared to a year ago is still quite high.
Yeah, and the most important thing of the 100 days, Dana, is President Trump ran on closing the border, and the border is closed. No one is coming across the border, and Democrats did not do that by choice now. It is obvious it was a choice because Donald Trump closed it. So Democrats are going to have to run with that burden, especially Vice President Harris, as she was the border czar. She opened it. She couldn't close it. Donald Trump has. I just got back from California. There are a lot of Democrats running for the Democratic nomination in 2026. Steve Hilton's the only Republican. If Harris runs, there's no guarantee she's going to beat Katie Porter. And I think she's in a tough situation. I hope the speech doesn't crater. I really do hope it doesn't crater.
Okay.
It would be very bad if it
back
cratered just for her, personally. I hope she can give a speech. I don't think she can win, but I do note in the LA Times, Kamala Harris plans pointed critique of Trump in first major speech since leaving office. Hope she's rehearsing. They did run a poll over at Politico from California Democrats with 33% saying they felt joyful about her possible candidacy, 41% saying they felt mostly excited. Negative emotions were in the single digits. That tells you more about California than it does about Kamala Harris, but I am here to tell you that Donald Trump's most important achievement in the 100 days is closing the border, and I want to underscore what I told Dana and Bill. He ran on that. Democrats said they were doing the best they can, and that Democrats prevented them, Republicans prevented them from closing the border because Chuck Schumer put up a fake border bill and Republicans wouldn't advance it in the Senate because they knew it was a political gimmick, and they knew that the President of the United States can close the border whenever the President wants to close the border. The Democrats didn't want to close the border, so they didn't close the border. Donald Trump wins. 100 days later, nobody's coming across. I mean, onesies and twosies are trying to scamper across, and they're getting picked up by border police. But the number one thing that you could get done, because you can't turn the economy around, he's going to get the big, beautiful bill, I think, hopefully by July 4. I hear different estimates on when it's coming, but that will launch the economic renewal. The tariffs have been bumpy, and that's all that legacy media covers. All I cover is the border and the fact that Americans are happy again, and that no one is screwing around with us, and the Houthis have figured out there's a price to be paid. And Iran has a choice in front of it. Dismantle their centrifuges, turn over their enriched uranium, or get bombed. And Donald Trump's made that very, very clear. He's painted Putin into the corner of being the bad guy. He has been very tough on China. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, up and down. He's the closest friend, the equal of any president that Israel's ever had, has Israel's back. I'm very happy with the first 100 days. I don't know about you. You might be one of these people looking to be sad, like Governor Pritzker. This was Governor Pritzker with Jen Psaki last night. He doubled down on his ridiculous speech. Cut 5.
The dangers that my family experienced in Ukraine, the dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone.
Jen
It's
Psaki
time to
participated in the cover-up of Joe Biden. So I'm not really sure why she's still on MSNBC. But a good question would be, well, if you've spotted the Nazi problem, how could you not spot the Biden problem, Governor? He's a smart guy. Again, I said that on Fox News this morning. I'll say it again. Pritzker is a smart guy. He's not like AOC. She's never going to win the spelling bee. But Pritzker could. And he knows better than Nazi regime analogies. That's just so stupid. It insults the intelligence of America. Noah C. Rothman is senior political writer for National Review. He joins me. Noah, today is the 100 days, but before I go there, I want to go to J.B. Pritzker. Now, I preface this by saying I think Pritzker is a pretty smart guy. I think he made a lot of money, inherited a lot of money, made a lot of money. Duke, Northwestern Law, venture capital, lost one race for Congress, won a tough primary, beat an incumbent Republican governor, got reelected. So he gave the State of the State 3 days ago, and he said this, cut number 6.
If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic.
And he said this last night on MSNBC, Noah, cut number 5.
The dangers that my family experienced in Ukraine, the dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone. It's time to step out of your comfort zone and step out into the streets and speak up and make your voices heard, because that's the only thing that we have. That's the power that we have. And we can stop them in their tracks, because you know what? Republicans in Congress don't want to lose re-election.
So, Noah, what do you think of JB?
There are two answers to that question. One is the, punditry answer, assessing what demographics Pritzker thinks he's appealing to, what they want to hear, and what he thinks he can get out of them. And we should get to that. But there's another answer, which is focused primarily on the offense to elementary civic decency that Mr. Pritzker is engaged in. The equation of this administration and this regime, by which I mean the United States governed by the Constitution, properly ratified Constitution, equating that with the lawless ad hoc putschist administrations of the Bolsheviks and the Nazi regime in Germany is just flat out wrong. It doesn't bear any passing resemblance to our shared reality. It is pretty hypocritical, in fact, on the part of Democrats who observed as Joe Biden engaged in lawless conduct after a lawless engagement, his contempt for the Constitution, his contempt for the courts, his effort to convey to his supporters that he was violating Supreme Court rulings, not because he was, but because that's what they wanted to hear. All of those were the red flags, the dead canaries in the coal mine that Democrats are now hyper attuned to, and insist that everybody else is simply ignoring these glaring warning signs, either because they're fooling themselves or they're engaged in intellectual corruption. It is contemptible. It's dangerous. We are in an environment now typified by the kinds of acts of political violence, mostly by maniacs, but the mob has its own rules. A reptilian brain takes over, and Democrats know it. We've seen it on January 6th. We saw it in the 2020 riots. And that's the sort of thing that Mr. Pritzker is inviting by being so solicitous of what he says, everybody should get out in the streets and do. We saw attempted attacks on Supreme Court justices. We saw attacks on sitting lawmakers. We saw attacks on staffers. Marco Rubio's staffer was beaten bloody because he was a Republican, according to the charging documents. This is the sort of thing that if you were really genuinely concerned about civic decency, you would be very aware of and very afraid of. Mr. Pritzker is not. Democrats are not.
No, I thought you were going to mention the Jews in New York who were assaulted last night. I thought you were going to mention the Jews who were assaulted last night in New York, because we've got a lot of the actual Nazi behavior running around. It is contemptible. I noted in the monologue, Noah, that he gave his second round of This is Nazi Germany 1933 to Jen Psaki, who spent 2 years telling us Joe Biden was doing dance steps like Fred Astaire in the Oval behind the scenes. So I really am not ready to believe anybody about anything on that team for a long time. Are you?
You shouldn't. You shouldn't. I'm in the middle of drafting a piece on this very premise. Watch for it in the next issue of National Review. Jen Psaki, who herself said that in the wake of the Dobbs decision, that it's the president's position, her words, that protesters descend on Supreme Court justices' homes to protest them in violation of the law. She said it has to be peaceful, right? Doesn't have to be peaceful. An effort to protest Supreme Court justices or any court justice in order to influence their decision-making, influence the conduct of the judiciary, is a violation of the law. But that was the president's position. And that was what his White House press secretary said everybody needs to do. Maybe they're ignorant of the law. No excuse there. Not an excuse for me, but so maybe it's, you might be charitable and give an excuse to them. I don't. But I would also maintain that this is very of a piece with the Democratic Party's conception of street justice, street power, that they believe that they benefit politically from displays of extra-legal, menacing, not necessarily violent, but menacing displays designed to intimidate, harass, and terrorize.
In fact, JB, let's go to the third JB Pritzker. I have three. It's a triple play by JB Pritzker. He gave this little tidbit at a New Hampshire fundraiser over the weekend, cut number 4.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. They have to understand that we will fight their cruelty with every megaphone and microphone that we have. We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
So, Noah, never before have I called for mass protests, mobilization, or disruption, and they must not know a moment of peace. What is Governor Pritzker calling for?
I don't know. I suspect that if you pin him down, he wouldn't be honest about what he's probably seeking. What he's seeking is the favor of the crowd. This is what Democratic activists want. This is what the Democratic activist wing, the progressive activist wing, is agitating for. They have soured on congressional leadership because it is not confrontational, because it is not setting itself on fire in a cathartic display of the kind of anxiety that has typified progressive activism in the second Trump era. I don't think he's calling for violence, but I also don't think that if violence were the manifestation of it, that he would take any ownership of it. He would say, oh, that's the sort of reaction that you have to understand from these people who have been whose rights have been violated, who have been antagonized, who are subject to the dictatorial whims of this administration. Really, what do you expect? And you know how I know that? Because that is precisely how they described, the progressive activist wing described the pro-Hamas agitators on American campuses who made a sport of menacing, harassing, and violating the civil rights of the Jews in their midst. You can't blame them.
100% correct, Noah Rothman. I appreciate it. I look forward to the next issue of National Review. I also look forward to the editors when you make your next appearance on that wonderful podcast from National Review. Follow Noah on X at Noah C. Rothman. That's on X at Noah C. Rothman. Thank you, Noah. Joined by Ty Lassiter, my monthly checkup on investment real estate in the United States. Ty is the CEO of Key City Capital. If you want to invest with Key City Capital, you got to know 4 or 5 things. KeyCityCapital.com/Hugh. You got to know I'm an investor, they're an advertiser. You have to be an accredited investor. You have to read the prospectus. You can't get into the fund that I got into. 6 things. You got to know 6 things. And they look for a minimum of a $100,000 investment. Those are all my disclosures. Ty, when last we spoke, you had opened up a new fund. How was interest in that fund?
It's doing great so far. We are looking at a huge opportunity in the marketplace right now. And in fact, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning about Deloitte is making a commitment to about 2/3 of an office space in Manhattan, a new office space in Manhattan, which accentuates what's going on in the real estate market right now. We are seeing a reset, and we are already focusing on taking advantage of that reset. And so we had 5 commitments this morning to our new fund already. Had a dinner event end of last week and had another 7. So it is moving quickly. There's a lot of interest going into this new fund and with what we're offering there. So can't wait to really get that one up and going and start working with some of our new clients that are coming in already.
Now, I saw the same headline about Deloitte. They're going onto the west side, I believe, of New York City. That's the worst real estate to invest in the world. So it must be a pretty hot market across the United States.
It is like we're seeing. Well, first of all, we've got a real estate investor in the White House, and we all know that. And so, what he's doing in the market and in the economy, he's focused on Main Street, not Wall Street right now. And so the things that he is doing for the economy and to the economy is benefiting real estate operators. And it's negatively impacting the equities market. And so what I have seen is many of the new commitments that we've got coming in are people that are leery of what's going on Wall Street and in the equities market. And they want their money in a physical asset, something that they can touch. And so, with that, that's what we offer is real estate. But then more importantly, you brought up a good point. Commercial real estate, and specifically commercial real estate in New York City, is highly speculative. We focus on real estate where you're putting a head in a bed. And at the end of the day, 77% of Americans cannot afford to own their own home right now. And so our demographic is targeting that 77% of America. And we all need a place to lay our head at the end of the night. And so that is what we are bringing to the marketplace, is an affordable place for Americans to call home.
Target. That's the demographic you target for renters. What is the demographic you target for investors?
That's exactly right. So our investors are $1 million net worth or higher, high income earners. So either you have $1 million net worth or greater, or you make $300,000 a year married filing jointly. And so what we bring to that demographic is for an investor to walk into a Wall Street firm and place their money in a private real estate offering, they're going to have a $15 to $20 million portfolio. And there's about 20 million Americans that are within our demographic, high net worth, $1 million or more, that don't have $20 million to put into a Goldman Sachs private fund. And so we focus on that demographic. I want to provide a real estate investment and the ability to generate cash flow, to build equity, to build appreciation, and have tax advantages without having to walk into a shop with $20 million. And so most of our investors fall within $1 million net worth to an $18 million net worth. And we have about 20 investors of our 700 or so that are much higher than that, $50 to $100 million net worth.
And how many different funds have you run, Ty? Because I like people to know you're very experienced. I think I got in Fund 3. My wife and I, so I'm not sure which fund you're on now.
Yeah, the fund we just opened is fund number 14. And so we've had, your fund number 3 was actually the 3rd real estate fund, but it was our 5th total fund. And so we're on total fund number 14 at this point.
I'll tell everyone, they over communicate. They really do. And if you're interested in reading the prospectus, they will send it to you. All you have to do is go to Key City Capital, all one word, Key City Capital, and it's AL for the benefit of the Steelers fans, keycitycapitaL.com/Hugh. There are some Steeler fans who are accredited investors, and I know at least there's one, Mr. Rooney. But if you're an accredited investor, get the prospectus and read it. I do love Key City Capital. They are wonderful people to deal with. keycitycapital.com/Hugh. And Mr. Rooney, you're welcome to do it too. Had a bad draft. You can make up for it with a good investment with Key City Capital. David Drucker is senior political writer with The Dispatch. He joins us. David, I note that the Dispatch acquired SCOTUS blog, which is my go-to website for finding out what the court is doing and links to the opinions. That's a fine acquisition. I didn't know that was in the books, but congratulations to the people over at the Dispatch. Nice move.
Thank you very much. We're very excited about it, and we don't really plan to change much other than to give everybody more of what they like about SCOTUS blog, just more of it.
What it is a concise summary of everything the court does, why they do it. Amy Howe is a wonderful reporter, so well done. David, it's 100 days. I got to ask because it's obligatory. It's in my contract. I must ask guests about the 100 days. Now,
Yep.
my predicate is that it doesn't mean anything unless you've got super majorities in the House and the Senate, and Donald Trump doesn't. So with that recognition that it doesn't mean anything, what do you think of the 100 days?
I mean, look, I think the president has accomplished some of what he set out to accomplish. Other tasks are yet to be completed. Maybe they will be completed, maybe they won't. To me, Hugh, as I thought about the president's second term, and I was thinking about this before this magical 100-day mark, is that he's, this time around, he's being judged on work product. The first term, he was judged most of the time based on things that he said or said he was going to do, but often never actually did. This time around, the polling and the reaction to his leadership reflects concrete actions he has taken. And I think that's something that's different and interesting, and that analysts should, like myself, should keep that in mind.
Now, David, after the Civil War, for probably 20 years, Republicans, quote, waved the bloody flag. That's what they ran on. They ran on the Civil War for 20 years. I think Republicans are going to run on the border for 20 years because Joe Biden threw it open. Kamala Harris was the border czar. She couldn't close it. And Donald Trump closed it in 100 days. And so it was obviously a choice Democrats made to open the border, a choice that Donald Trump reversed. Do you think that accomplishment, and it really is an accomplishment in the eyes of most Americans, he polls best on the border, do you think that will endure as a marker in future races?
Well, I think you're correct that Republicans will probably run on it in the same way they ran on tax cuts for 40 years after Ronald Reagan was first elected. But I think that it's hard to judge without knowing future events exactly how sort of enduring that messaging will be. But then again, they may have a chance to run on the border more than they might want to, because so much of what the president's doing is by executive order, which means it can be reversed by executive order. And you never know what the next Democratic president will do. And there will be Democratic presidents. And so this thing may ping pong back and forth, giving Republicans an opportunity to do this over and over again. On the other hand, it'll be interesting to see, sort of the way Bill Clinton said the era of big government is over in the early 90s, whether or not the next Democratic president or some future Democratic president in the near future says something to the effect of, I'm not changing things up at all. This border debate is closed, and the border will also remain closed.
Let me play for you J.B. Pritzker. Now, I think Pritzker's a pretty smart guy. Duke, Northwestern Law, beat an incumbent Republican, won a four-way primary, won re-election, a billionaire, obviously. He goes to give his State of the State in Illinois, and he says this, cut number 6.
If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic.
All right, so the night before with Jen Psaki, he said this, cut number 5.
The dangers that my family experienced in Ukraine, the dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells
David,
to everybody.
I want to give you enough time. I think Pritzker's a smart guy. I think that's really stupid rhetoric. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it never goes well when you raise Hitler, the specter of Hitler and the Nazis, when discussing anything or anyone in American politics. It's catnip for the Democratic base. These sorts of arguments have not worked in general elections. We have seen that recently. And so, I'm sure he's positioning himself to run for president. This raises his profile, raises attention. The base loves a fighter. Both parties' bases love a fighter. But this is the sort of message that's a loser in a general election.
Well, that's what I was asked by Bill Hemmer and Dana Perino today. I said, this is 1972 all over again. Democrats lose one that they thought they were going to win. They shatter and they go left. They nominate McGovern. Nixon crushes him. Same thing happens in 80 after Carter loses. They go left. They nominate Mondale. I'll raise your taxes. He won't tell you he will. I think it's like the title charts. The Democrats are going to go hard left.
Well, maybe they will, but let's see who they nominate, and let's see if that nominee learns anything from the past. These are events we simply don't know how they're going to unfold yet. Nobody knew that 2016 would unfold the way it did.
David, I'm going to bet you right now if you'll take my bet. I get AOC and you get the field. Will you make that bet?
Oh yeah, I'll totally make that bet. I mean, let's get a good stake somewhere, and I win even if I lose.
Good stake somewhere. If AOC is the nominee, you take me. Anybody else, I take you. Good steak, no wine. I see that David Drucker. I go into one restaurant in Washington, and David Drucker has his name on the wine thing. What do they call that? Wine cabinet? What is that called?
It's a wine locker, and my wife
It's a
and
wine
I
locker.
both have our name. Yeah,
you're working way too. They're paying you too much at the Dispatch, and they could have bought SCOTUS blog long ago if you didn't have a wine locker, David. I'm telling you right now that I always point that out. I don't have one, but I have a friend who has one. Drucker's got a wine locker. Thank you, David Drucker. Follow him on David M. Drucker at X. Follow him at the Dispatch. Now read SCOTUS blog and get smart about everything having to do with the Supreme Court. Donald Trump made his way to Air Force One today via Marine One, and on his way to Marine One, he was stopped, and I'll play the full gaggle later, but one intrepid reporter asked him who he'd like to be Pope. Let's play that, please.
As Pope? Yeah. I'd like to be Pope. That would be my number one choice. No, I don't know. I have no preference. I must say we have a cardinal that happens to be out of a place called New York who's very good. So we'll see what happens.
He likes Cardinal Dolan. I want to know what you think. The obvious follow-up. What would you choose as your name? I mean, that's it, right? What would you choose as your name, Donald Trump, if you were the Pope? That's the follow-up. They fumbled the ball. I think that's unfortunate. I have not
Trump
fumbled
the first,
the ball.
right?
What?
Pope Trump the first.
No, I don't think he'd go with his own name. We have to think about that a little bit. He'd go with something big, something like Pope Golden Age. I don't know. Pope Platinum, maybe Pope Platinum, could be. That's in the running. I want to tell you, I have switched to consumer cellular, 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-441-4454, or consumercellular.com/Hugh. Why? Savings without the sacrifice. You absolutely do not have to sacrifice quality to save money. And what you get depends on what you need. Their target demo are people who are 50 years and older. Typically, they need one line and they need 8 gigs or less of data. A lot of big cellular, likes to sell older folks unlimited data plans. And maybe you need one. If you need an unlimited data plan, Consumer Cellular has 2 lines for $60 a month. Can't beat that. But if you don't need unlimited data, because you really just text and talk, then you want to go with the 8 gigs cheapo line. But you get the same quality. Whatever you want to do, call them and investigate. It's so easy to switch. Takes 20 minutes. So easy to switch. Keep your number. Keep your contacts. Call 1-800-221 1-800-411-4454. Don't forget your relief factor. Got my 4 miles in before America's Newsroom this morning. I'm fine. I'm always fine when I do my relief factor. It is one of those things that if you do it every day, you'll never feel it. You'll never know it. You'll never know that you stop. If you stop taking it, it might catch up with you. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, there they are, the 4 pills of relief factor. And LaCroix. That is my water of choice now, LaCroix. And I take it it's that easy. And that means I'm going to have aches and pains in the morning. That's a 5 and a 4 back to back. Probably going to go a little bit longer tomorrow. Probably go a little bit slower. But it's been beautiful in the Beltway. And I'm telling you, call 1-800, the number 4, the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or go to their website and find the starter pack for $19.95. Look for it at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Joined by Brett Baer. He is host of Special Report, America's news program. He is America's anchor. Brett, you're also the father of 2 boys. I'm just curious. They're older. Mother's Day is now in sight. Are they still looking for you to do Mother's Day, or have you passed the Mother's Day job off to them now?
Oh, they have a responsibility, Hugh. They've got their own thing. We always do homemade cards, so everybody's responsible for their own homemade card, and then they have to do a gift on their own. So I'm
okay. I just want dads across the country to realize you've got to pass that baton off at some point. Now, Brett, I want to dig back into your past as a Pentagon reporter. The Houthis managed to shoot something at the Truman yesterday that caused the Truman, that's a carrier for the benefit of the Steelers fans, to do some kind of a jig-jag that lost a Super Hornet over the side. That's $70 million over the side. First of all, have you ever heard of anything like that? And then B, what happens to the Truman is snake bit on this deployment, Brett?
Yeah, and they've been, under attack by the Houthis, even though the Houthis have been under assault from U.S. aircraft for a while and have taken significant losses. But that's a big deal. I mean, they're doing evasive maneuvers and they lose a plane over the side. That is not cheap. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but it shows you that they're not letting up as far as firing on U.S. ships.
Does it lead, in your opinion, the President of the United States to a harder view of Iran? Because Houthis are only doing what Iran wants them to do. President gets up on an odd numbered day and he threatens to bomb them, and on even numbered days he says the negotiations are going quite well. How do you read this situation? Because the Houthis are Iran, are Hamas, are Hezbollah, in my view.
They're all one and the same. Iran funds them all. I think, it all factors in to whatever this negotiation is with Iran, and I think they're probably using those proxies as part of this negotiating that they're doing. They do have a spigot of funds that goes to all of these places, and the Houthis are one of them. I think it's the president's wish to get to a negotiated point with Iran, because we were very close, I'm told, to flicking the green light to Bibi Netanyahu to go ahead and attack those nuclear sites.
Well, I have not been told that, but I'm not surprised. If someone told you they wanted it to be known, let me ask you, when the president comes out and says he's close to a deal, I don't believe him. I just think he says that as part of the art of the deal. Do you believe anything he says on a day-to-day basis about this deal?
On the Iran side?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's a longer walk to get to a deal with Iran. There's a little skepticism in me on that. He can talk about how it's progressing and how he hears back from Steve Witkoff or whomever about the specifics. But as far as a buttoned-up deal, I think that is a little bit further away. Now, on trade deals, I do have decent intel that India is on the cusp, and they would like a couple of deals to come out altogether. So it may be India and South Korea and Japan. So there are blueprints for the market to see how they dealt with these big countries.
All right, now, Brett, I did my obligatory 100 days bit in my first hour today. Are you doing 100 days tonight on Special Report?
Yeah, we'll be at the White House. The speech that the president's going to deliver, his speech about 100 days will probably happen in our hour at some point from Michigan. So we will take that speech. But I went over to the White House today. We were trying to get something with the president today. Timing didn't work out, so I decided to go there and went to the South Lawn departure in Marine One, and I got a few questions asked and answered there in my old job as White House correspondent, yelling questions from the gaggle. So I did that, and we'll put that in the show, and we'll do the show from the White House tonight.
Hey, Brett, now, which presidents did you do the gaggle with? President Obama?
No, I did go over there a couple of times during Obama. That was when I first took over for Britt Hume, but I was chief White House correspondent for George W. Bush.
Okay, so the gaggles for W are considerably different. No one ever asked W if he wanted to be Pope, right?
No, and nor would he say yes. But, there were serious yelled questions, and I was one of them yelling about the Iraq War and Abu Ghraib and the prison scandal. I mean, all those things were popping back in those days.
All right, last question for you. J.B. Pritzker at the State of the State in Illinois, cut number 6.
If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic.
Brett Baer, I think J.B. Pritzker is smart. He's Duke and Northwestern. He beat an incumbent Republican after winning a 4 or 5 way Democratic primary back in 2018. He's a brawler. This is nuts, isn't it? I mean, what is he trying to do?
He's trying to get oxygen and lay the groundwork for a 2028 run. I mean, he also said he's for mass protests against the Trump administration and against President Trump. He says that Democrats should take to the streets, lambasting their party for being too weak. But once you go down the Hitler road, as we've seen many, many times, it usually doesn't end in the right place tonally.
No.
And whether he's laying the groundwork for a run or not, I'm not sure that that's going to be the key to getting on a significant ballot.
Who are we going to see on Special Report tonight?
Well, you're going to see the president in this little Q&A that we did on the South Lawn, and we've got a lot of stories to cover around the world, but something tells me you'll see the president's speech from Michigan, depending on timing.
Brett Baer, thank you. I know you got to get down there. I appreciate the call today. Special Report every Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Don't miss it. America's newsman and America's last standing news report. And I say that with complete sincerity. You can trust Special Report. Now I got to tell you about the market today, because I always bring you a market report brought to you by our friends at American Federal Coin and Bullion. And Nick Grovich is the very best in the world at this. And he buys and sells your gold. He's very transparent. He's very honest. I bought gold from him in January. I do it every January, and I will do it with Nick forever because it's the easiest it's ever been. No muss, no fuss. Here's the strike price. Here's the commission. This is when you get us your cash. This is when you get your gold. They don't play the float. They don't try and upsell you. They're not trying to sell you collectibles. They're not really big believers in collectibles unless you happen to be a passionate collector, in which case you can talk to Nick for 8 hours. He'll probably forget everyone else in line wanting to just buy gold if you're a collector, because he's a collector. Today, the Dow went up 0.75%. The S&P went up more than 0.5%. The NASDAQ went up more than 0.5%. The Russell Index went up more than 0.5%. Gold, however, gold dipped a little bit. If you're going to buy on the dip, it's down to $3,332.40. $3,302.40, down about 0.45%. And it's not always inversely correlated with the market. It's been on its own trajectory, which has been wild for the last year. And I don't expect it to come down, but I am not a prophet nor the son of a prophet, and I don't make investment advice. But I do believe in diversified portfolio. I do own gold. I do own dirt. I own stocks and bonds and cash. And because I'm boring and I don't know what I'm doing. So I buy a little bit of everything, and that's the way the professionals do, because you can't beat the professionals. When you buy gold, I do make a recommendation. Do it with Nick Grovich. 1-800-221-7694. If you're watching on the Salem News Channel, that number is right there under American Federal Coin and Bullion, 800-221-7694. Best guy in the business, most honest, wonderful guy in the business, and find out how much you want to do, and maybe you just buy an ounce to start. Maybe you buy 3 ounces, put them in your safety deposit box, and forget about them. That's called diversification. Generalissimo, I want to know if you've diversified into other than protein bars, because myphdweightloss.com is the sponsor of our show. 864?
644.
What'd you have, a stroke? 864?
644.
1900. What happened there?
You didn't tell me we were doing the spot right now.
Oh, you are such a whiner someday.
I'm not whining. You asked me a question, I answered it.
myphdweightloss.com. You go out on a bender yesterday to Disneyland, to the Taco Taquito, whatever it is, Tiki bar thing.
Tiki Land Day, there was no bar involved.
How long does it take to recover from that on myphdweightloss.com?
Not too long. I have been behaving myself the last day and a half. I'll be fine.
864.
644.
1900. I must remind people, I met another successful MyPhD weight loss person on Saturday Night Live.
They exist by the thousands.
This is a great program. 864.
644.
1900, especially if you go to a Kontiki room cocktails like Dwayne did 2 nights ago. I do not often show you, whether you're listening on one of my great affiliates in the Hudson Valley, just picked up 4 or 5 new affiliates. Great to have you. Just picked up a new one up in Redding, California. Great to have you. Don't know where you are among the affiliate tree. Don't know if you're a Salem radio network station or if you're watching on the Salem News Channel. I do not often play an entire gaggle because you can't really make out the questions. There's noise in the background. But it's 100 days. So Donald Trump, unlike Joe Biden, who would shuffle along isolated from everyone, Donald Trump just throws himself right into the press line. And the gaggle's kind of fun. So let's play the full gaggle, cut number 22.
Everybody, we're going to a great state that we won very big, Michigan, and we're going to have an Air Force base that's not going to be closing. We're going to keep it open for the people of Michigan and for our country. And I look forward to that. Some of you are going and some of you aren't. Any questions? Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. And he did the right thing, and he's a good guy. No, not an update. No, not an update.
Mr. President, Jordan Conrad's doing the Gateway Pundit. I wanted to get your response on the leftist media. They're trying to hide the mugshots that are featured on the front lawn of rapists, murderers, pedophiles. What do you think of that? Aren't they proving to be the enemy of the people?
Well, I guess they are. I guess they are, right? Thank you. Who are you with?
I like your hat, by the way.
Who are you with?
The Gateway Pundit, sir.
Mr. President, sir, what's your message to Republicans on the Hill who seem not to be on board with your political agenda? What do you say
I think they're going to be all on board. I think the Republicans are really with us. We have the big, beautiful deal. It's moving along, and I think we're going to have it taken care of. I think they'll all be there.
Mr. President, what's your stance, sir?
Will you end the IRS? Tell us about your decision on the auto tariffs, sir.
We just wanted to help them during this little transition, short term. And during this little, if they can't get parts, it has to do with a very small percentage. If they can't get parts, we didn't want to penalize them. And they have a 1-year period, and then they have an extra year. But it's for a very, very small part of the car. But basically, they're paying 25%.
Mr. President, how do you end the IRS with the Internal Revenue Service?
What's your message for all retailers who could feel possibly the same thing?
Yeah, nothing that really, he's a good guy. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years, and he's done a fantastic job. So I appreciated what he did.
Sir, what's your How are you? There you go. How's it going? Give me a speech in Michigan. You're going to list the accomplishments of the administration. Yeah. if there was one big thing that you really wanted to have happen in the first 100 days, what would it be?
Well, I think we've done everything or it's in the process of being done. For instance, the border is in great shape. 99.9% came out again today. 99.9. That I would say that was my number one thing. The economy would be certainly right up there, and I think it's doing great. We were losing billions and billions of dollars a day with trade, and now I have that down to a very low level, and soon we're going to be making a lot of money. We're going to be reducing people's taxes, and we're going to get the big, look, a very important element that we're working on now, maybe more important than anything with the border in good shape, is the fact that we want to get, and very importantly, the big, beautiful New Deal. If we get that done, that's the biggest thing, what's happening in Congress right now. And I think we're going to get it done. We have great Republican support. If the Democrats blocked it, you'd have a 60% tax increase. I don't think that's going to happen. We have great support from Republicans. So the big, beautiful deal, that's what we want, the bill. I think the next period of time, I think my biggest focus will be on Congress with the deal that we're working on. That'll be the biggest bill in the history of our country in terms of tax cuts and regulation cuts and other things.
By the way, that was Brett. So you can tell if you were watching on the Salem News Channel, the president did a Johnny Carson golf swing, and he does that because he and Brett are golfers, and it's unusual for him to see Brett out on the grass. As Brett told me in the first segment, that's a throwback. But what he's focused on is the one big, beautiful bill, and Republicans in the Senate and the House need to get together and get that done. The title charts of American politics show losing the House in 2026. That's almost inevitable. It will be inevitable if they don't allow the economy to take off, and the economy will take off when the tax cuts are signed and not before. So to every Republican who's dragging their heels over, they want an extra $1 billion out of Medicaid or something like that, wake up and smell the coffee. Get this thing done, come back and fight on the second reconciliation, or you won't have anything to fight with because you're going to be in the minority for at least 2 years, and we have the first articles of impeachment filed today by some crackerjack box prize of a congressman. Some plastic congressman, I don't know, I've never heard of him or her, don't even know if it's a him or a her, don't know where they're from, just knew they filed articles of impeachment. That will be a daily thing if you lose control of the House. I don't want to lose control of the House. I think we need the tax bill. I really don't know why they're not working around the clock. Speaker Johnson had this to say today, cut number 13.
He is the most consequential American leader of the 21st century. And that's an understatement. President Trump has, here's a list: remove men from women's sports, ended DEI in the federal government and the U.S. military, expanded oil and gas extraction to lower prices, taken steps to end unfair trade practices, secured trillions of dollars in new investments in American manufacturing, deported criminal illegal aliens, stood up for religious liberty and rooted out anti-Christian bias, combated virulent anti-Semitism on college campuses. The list goes on and on and on. That's just barely scratching the surface. That's in 100 days. We're just getting started.
Just getting started. And I believe interest rates will come down and Andrew and Todd will be overwhelmed. Great sponsor of my show, andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. Doing business with Andrew right now for a family member. andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. I am here to tell you, Andrew, Del Rey, Todd Avakian are the very best mortgage lenders in the business because Sierra Pacific Mortgage is a bank. So they underwrite the loan. They actually make the loan. So I went by the Sierra Pacific Mortgage Andrew and Todd office last week before I left California, met their wonderful staff of a dozen people, had some yucks. They got surfboards everywhere. They act like laid-back Californians, but they're killers. They will absolutely kill to get your loan done. And they will help you buy exactly the right amount of house. And you got to get pre-approved and pre-funded. All right, not just pre-approved, but pre-funded. And you can do that with andrewandtodd.com. Walk in and be the most confident buyer in the line of buyers by having either all cash, then you don't need Andrew and Todd, or fully approved, fully funded. andrewandtodd.com, 888-888-1172. Don't wait another day, get started. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet, but I think the Miami Heat have been relegated to the G League because the Cleveland Cavaliers crushed them in 4-game sweep. They won last night 138-83 in Miami. 4-game sweep, get the broom out. Get more than a broom, get a vacuum. There was nothing left of the Heat after that. They got to rebuild. But the Cavs move on. Indiana's next, I think. Let me go to Scott Bessent, who has become, look, there are a lot of great people in this cabinet. I think Doug Burgum is the equal of any domestic side. I think Marco Rubio is the equal of any national security side appointee in the last many decades. But Scott Bessent, normally your Secretary of the Treasury is kind of dull. I mean, that's what their job is, just be dull. Not Scott Bessent. Cut number 14.
Well, we're not going to talk about who's talking to whom, but I think that, over time we will see that the Chinese tariffs are unsustainable for China. I've seen some very large numbers over the past few days to show if these numbers stay on, Chinese could lose 10 million jobs very quickly, and even if there is a drop in the tariffs, that they could lose 5 million jobs. So remember that we are the deficit country. They sell almost 5 times more goods to us than we sell to them. So the onus will be on them to take off these tariffs. They're unsustainable for them.
And they are saying you guys are not talking about it. So is that true?
Look, they have a different form of government. They're playing to a different audience. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, again, of who's talking to whom. But as I said, I believe for the Chinese, these tariffs are unsustainable.
Now, he went on to talk about the big, beautiful bill, the one big, beautiful bill, cut number 15, Scott Bessent at the White House today.
It's really a three-legged stool in the economic policy. It's trade, it's tax, and it's deregulation. So we are in the midst of addressing, as Caroline said, these long-term trade imbalances. The tax bill is going much better than I would have thought when I took office on January 28th, and that's through President Trump's leadership. That Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune are united. Speaker Johnson, we had a very good meeting yesterday with something called the Big Six. NEC Director Kevin Hassett, myself, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, Committee Chairman Jason Smith, and Senator Crapo. And the tax bill is moving forward. It is going to give permanence to the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act, which will, back to the question on certainty, it will give American business certainty, it will give American people certainty, and then President Trump is also adding the things for working Americans that is talked about earlier, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, making auto payments deductible. So that will substantially address the affordability crisis.
Now, I think that's the best news I've heard in a long time. They got to get that bill done, and they don't have a lot of margin in the House, so they got to make everybody happy. I think Donald Trump will be crucial to that. Also talked about negotiations on the trade front with our Asian trading partners, not named China, cut number 17.
I'm glad you brought up our Asian trading partners and allies. They have been the most forthcoming in terms of doing the deals. As I mentioned, Vice President Vance was in India last week. I think that he and Modi made some very good progress, so I could see some announcements on India. I could see the contours of a deal with the Republic of Korea coming together, and then we've had substantial talks with the Japanese.
So one more cut of Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury at the White House today, cut number 18.
what are American manufacturers not understanding about your push for onshoring in the U.S.?
Well, I think I was in the investment business 35 years, and I learned to ignore the survey data and look at the actual data, and the actual data has been quite good. The job data is good. Americans keep spending, and as Caroline said, we have these incredible commitments to bring manufacturing back on shore with record investment by domestic corporations and foreigners who want to come into the U.S.
These are competent people doing competent things. Donald Trump ran on closing the border. The border is closed. He ran on supporting Israel. He's back to back with Bibi Netanyahu and the entire Israeli government. He ran on not letting Iran off the hook. They have a very clear choice: dismantle their centrifuges and give us their uranium enrichment processes, or get bombed. He's been clear. He's getting it done. And the tax bill's going to get done. It's a pretty good 100 days. Better than I expected. A lot better than I expected, because I thought the border was so badly out of control it would take 2 years. He's done it in 100 days. Byron York is inside the Beltway. Byron is with the Washington Examiner. He's also a Fox News contributor, and weekly he joins me to assess what's going on. Byron, happy 100 days to you. It is a silly and meaningless exercise, but let's go through it. What's the best news from the 100 days? What's the worst news from the 100 days of Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, we've all moved on. We've been talking about the 100 days since day 90, so we should probably just move on. The best part of the 100 days is obviously the border. I would, as a historian, I would ask you, is there another president who solved one of the main issues of the campaign, as determined by the voters? Because all the polls showed that the border was 1, 2, or 3 among voters. Is there a president who has solved one of the main problems of the campaign in the first weeks of his presidency? I can't think of one. It's huge.
I've been covering it closely since 1976. I can't think of one, and I do not believe that any president. Abraham Lincoln kicked off the Civil War in the first 100 days, but that was actually South Carolina's fault. So I'm not going to blame him for that. But I will tell you, no.
It took a while for that to resolve too, by the way.
Yeah, and I was asked this by Bill and Dana today, and I said, look, the Democrats obviously left it open by a choice. Donald Trump flipped the switch and closed it. I think Democrats are settled with that for many elections to come, Byron. Do you?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the best line of Trump's speech to Congress in March, which was Democrats said you had to pass a bill. You must have legislation to secure the border when all you really needed was a new president. Yep. Really true.
Really true. Second thing, on the White House lawn today, he said 3 times, once to Brett, twice to other people, he feels good about the big, beautiful deal, which was originally the one big, beautiful bill. And I had an upbeat conversation with Jason Smith last week. I had an upbeat conversation with James Lankford, who's on finance. I think it's going to get done. Do you think it's going to get done?
You know more than I do at this point. I don't know. First of all, he told me about Republican opposition. He told me an interesting story. I interviewed him a few weeks ago in mid-March, I think. And so he was talking about the bill that basically set up the framework for the big, beautiful bill. And there was a lot of controversy about whether that one could get passed, too. And there were a few. In the end, only Thomas Massie was the only Republican who voted against it. But in the earlier parts of it, there were a number of holdouts, Republican holdouts, who opposed it. And so he's telling me this story, and he says, they told me, meaning the House leadership, they told me there were 10 hard no's. There were people who were hard no, and would I please talk to them? And he said, so I call them up. I call the first one up, and I said, I say hi, and the guy says, oh, Mr. President, I am with you all the way. You can count on me 100%. And Trump goes, oh, really? Okay, thanks. Calls up the next guy, the next hard no. And he says, oh, Mr. President, I'm with you all the way. Support everything you do. You got my vote. And Trump goes, oh, thanks. And I said to him, wow, I thought you were like twisting arms in this. And he looks at me and says, no, they just wanted to be talked to.
Well, you know, if you're a backbencher, I get it.
Yes.
I get it. You know, it's sort of like I'm reading with Larry Arnn of Hillsdale College, My Early Life by Winston Churchill, and there's nothing like a maiden speech in Parliament. So if you get a call from the president, you can go out to lunch on that for a long time. And that conversation might grow in the president's absence, right?
Yes, it could. But so what can I say when because I had thought at the time, I thought, the passage of this bill is 100% Trump. He managed to strong arm people into voting who didn't want to vote for it, into voting for it. And then he tells me this story. So what's going to happen to the Republican opposition this time? It might the same thing.
Byron, it's the biggest tax cut in history or the biggest tax hike in history. And I really can't imagine, other than Tom Massey, who is off his meds, I have no idea of anyone else who wants to get tagged with the biggest tax hike in history. I really don't.
Yeah.
Let me
By
move.
the way, he didn't call Tom Massey that he's written him off. He doesn't even try.
There's just no use. I want to switch over to the Democrats because I think J.B. Pritzker is smart. Duke, Northwestern Law, beat Rayner, who's an incumbent Republican, won a four-way primary in 2018. He's never been crazy. He's always been partisan. His sister runs Harvard. He came from a lot of money, but he's a smart guy. Until yesterday or this week, something happened, a brainworm or something happened. Here he is at the State of the State, Byron, cut number 6.
If you think I'm overreacting and sounding the alarm too soon, consider this. It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic.
All right, so that was not a mistaken judgment because he doubled down last night on MSNBC with Jen Psaki, cut number 5.
The dangers that my family experienced in Ukraine, the dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany, especially in the earliest days of Nazi Germany, are the dangers that we need to react to now. If we don't, things will get much, much worse. And so we've got to raise alarm bells to everybody. It's a 5-alarm fire, everyone. It's time to step out of your comfort zone and step out into the streets and speak up and make your voices heard. Because
so Byron, we have a minute to the break. Is he lost his mind, the Nazis?
No, it's funny that you mentioned this because I have just written my newsletter about him because I read about the speech. I listened to the speech that he gave in New Hampshire on Sunday night. And this is the one in which he encouraged Democrats to engage in mass protest, mobilization, and disruption so that Republicans will, quote, never know a moment of peace. And they loved it. The crowd, and it was in Manchester, Democrats obviously loved it. And so there's a fight going on inside the Democratic Party, and the moderates are losing right now. And Pritzker, if anything, is outgunning AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are getting so much press for their private jet fighting oligarchs.
AOC raised $9.6 million in Q1. She's out on the Bernie parade. Yeah, they had the private plane lineup that was somewhat embarrassing, but AOC seems to be unembarrassable after the Met Gala. I just think she's unstoppable, and it's 1972 all over again when Nixon shatters their nominee in 68 and then crushes McGovern having gone left, and it happened again in 80 and 84. I'm giving the whole field to David Drucker on a stake, and I'd take an AOC. Will you take the same bet?
The whole field.
Yeah, everybody but AOC.
Yeah,
you will, because I think AOC's a lock. I think she's
I would go with that. That is so interesting. Well, first of all, you just can't know because it's impossible to know exactly how Trump. First of all, everything's all about Trump. Whether it seems to be about Trump or not, it's about Trump. And clearly, if Democrats win control of the House in 26, which seems very likely. I mean,
the tide charts suggest the tide comes in for them. Yes,
but historically, Democrats are going to win, and then they're going to impeach Trump. And so will it just be a replay of the earlier impeachments? We've seen this movie before, or will it change their politics for 28? So I just don't know. And also, I think maybe you and I talked about this. Do you know the only sitting member of the House ever to be elected to President of the United States from the House?
No, it wasn't Mo Udall. He lost in 76.
I think it is James A. Garfield.
Oh, you might be right. Yes, from Ohio.
And so that's it.
But he was a
so
Civil War hero too, Byron. He was a Civil War hero.
It don't happen. Okay, so I just really would be extremely surprised that the representative from parts of Queens and the Bronx is going to be elected president.
AOC David Hogg. That's my ticket, David, and
There you go.
Byron, and I'm sticking with it. Byron York, thank you. Follow him on X at Byron York. Russ Vought is a member of the cabinet. He is the head of the Office of Management and Budget, trained by our own friend John Campbell. Really a smart guy. He was on Fox this morning with Bill Hemmer, talking about the speed with which he was the last OMB director as well. Cut for 19. Russ Vought
Well, I think
on
in
Fox
general,
this morning.
everything we've done in this term, the president has shown that he is able and has thought about this job now, doing it again over the last 4 years. We're doing everything faster. We are on a fundamentally different time frame than we were in the first term, as fast as we were doing things then. And you've been able to see, I think it was necessary for the world to see the seriousness that the president displayed on Liberation Day. And now we're in that period of time where the conversations are occurring, the negotiations are, the team is spread out to be able to facilitate those. And I think we're going to have some incredible results on behalf of the American people.
I also want to go to Keith Kellogg. General Kellogg, part of the team on Ukraine, said this on Fox Today, cut number 20.
What the president wants is a permanent, comprehensive ceasefire, sea, air, land, infrastructure for a minimum of 30 days, and then we can extend that. He's absolutely right. The president has this one right on the money. And that's where we want to go to. And when you look at everything the Ukrainians are willing to work with, now it's over to the Russians, over to Putin. Okay, we've got one side. Now you need to come up with the other side, and I think we're close. Look.
I think we're close, but I know it's all on Putin, just like it's all on Khamenei. The alliance of tyrants, going to be tough to get them to move, but Khamenei realizes Donald Trump's got a half dozen B-2s parked over at Diego Garcia and 2 carrier groups in the Med and the Red Sea ready. I think they're both in the Red Sea. Actually, they're both in the Gulf of Arabia. They're both ready to strike Iran. So you can make a deal, Mr. Ayatollah, or not. You can also get your relief factor or not. I'm in the relief factor beltway. I'm going to be going to the relief factor north in a couple of weeks, and I'll be back in the relief factor beltway. I go back and forth. But I take my relief factor everywhere I am. California is out on the Potomac, 4 miles today, 5 yesterday, 4 today. Go longer tomorrow, but slower. And relief factor makes that possible because icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, and omega actually do work to get rid of the minor aches and pains that accompany exercise and aging. You're definitely doing the latter. You should be doing the former. Whether you're a gym rat or a swimmer, or you make your exercise by going to Disneyland to Taco Tuesdays at the Tiki Bar, like Dwayne did. I think it was Taco Tuesday at the Tiki Bar. And whatever it is that Dwayne did, he would have done it with more comfort if he had taken Relief Factor. $19.95 gets you started. I tell you about it every hour, every single hour, in the hopes that someone out there will remember that it's in your cupboard and you really do want to feel better. Or someone out there will say, today is the day I'm going to listen to Hugh. And call 1-800, the number 4 and the word relief, 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or go to their website and find the $19.95 starter pack, less than $1 a day. Don't mask your pain anymore. Get rid of it at relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. My old friend, probably my closest friend, Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor, Ambassador O'Brien, is now on the Presidential Intelligence Board, running American Global. Does very little media. When he does, it's closely coordinated with his colleagues, both at the NSC, very close to Mike Waltz, with the President, of course, Secretary Rubio. So when he goes on Fox with John Roberts today, I tilt my head and I pay attention because he doesn't normally do that. Here's Ambassador O'Brien talking about Putin and Ukraine. Cut number 7.
Well, I think so. And I think what President Trump has done is he's put himself in the position to be the neutral arbitrator for this dispute and the war. And Trump has said, we want to get this settled, John. And he's the only guy who can do it. He gave Zelensky a hard time early on. He's now in a position where he's giving Putin a hard time. He came out and hit him on Truth Social. And we've got, if Putin doesn't come to the table very soon, I think he's going to find, you saw Marco Rubio say we're going to walk away. You've heard Trump a little disgruntled with him. He's going to find the U.S. on his bad side. He's not going to like that.
Cut number 8, Moore O'Brien.
Well, look, I think President Trump, as you know, John, he's a peacemaker, and he's committed to peace. He ran on peace in Ukraine as part of his election campaign. But look, if the Russians walk away, I think the Ukrainians are there. If the Russians walk away, the U.S. has some pretty big tools, some pretty big sticks to use, and not even militarily, kicking Russia out of the SWIFT system, putting sanctions on the Russian Federation Central Bank, which would affect their oil and gas sales. So walking away from the process isn't necessarily good for Putin if he thinks then he's got a free hand. Walking away from the process is going to mean the U.S. putting very severe sanctions on the Russians. That's not good for them. It's not good for the world. And Vladimir Putin really needs to get religion. He needs to come to the table and get a deal. And the president's been very generous with the terms he's willing to offer the Russians, obviously with the Ukrainians, but Vladimir Putin needs to come to the table now.
He reiterated it one more time. Cut number 8.
Well, I don't think he'll ever say it. It may be like a North-South Korea situation or one of the frozen conflicts in Georgia or Moldova, where he doesn't recognize the Russian territory. But keep in mind, this territory that the Russians have, John, it was taken under Obama and Biden. It was never taken under Trump. In fact, with President Trump, the only term that we've had in the last 3 presidents or 4 presidents where the Russians haven't gained territory is under Donald Trump. All this territory was basically gained under Biden and Obama. And so Trump is saying, okay, we've got a frozen conflict here. We'll recognize it, but the killing has to stop. I mean, the president keeps saying that the killing has to stop. And you know, Zelensky doesn't have to recognize it, but the reality, the de facto reality is that those are probably the lines.
Now, I wanted you to put that down just as a marker. Putin doesn't want those lines, then we're going to give more ATACMS to to the Ukrainians. And that is a good result, in my view. I also want to play for you Stephen Miller on the White House lawn after J.B. Pritzker. Well, let's play Pritzker first. Cut number 4.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. But I am now.
So, when you are stuck on the highway because from the river to the sea crowd has stopped the Golden Gate Bridge, or you can't get to the hospital in Manhattan because the Columbia students are parading around, or you've got the Stop Oil people you're trying to get from Cleveland to Columbus and it's not happening because Stop Oil decided that's where they're going to work today, you can thank J.B. Pritzker. Stephen Miller took to the White House lawn yesterday, Deputy Chief of Staff and Assistant to the President, cut number 11.
Stephen, Illinois Governor Pritzker just called for mass protests and disruption, saying Republicans cannot know peace, while Trump's border crossings are down 95% and ICE is locking up 800 criminals. Is Pritzker inciting insurrection, and will DOJ take action?
Well, what I would say is that his comments, if nothing else, clearly could be construed as inciting violence. So President Trump survived 2 assassination attempts against his life. Of course, there's been many more credible threats against President Trump and his family and associates. We've, of course, seen the spate of left-wing domestic terrorism all across this country. By the way, the destruction of property sits directly adjacent to attacks on humans and physical attacks. In other words, once you tolerate and once you allow for attacks on property, you're just a step away from people throwing Molotov cocktails into people's homes. And you've even seen some, I think one example of a formerly prominent Washington Post journalist who seemed to be celebrating the murder of a healthcare CEO. right? Health insurance CEO. And that's the point we've reached in this country, where people are engaging in rhetoric and behavior that puts the lives of public servants in danger, puts the lives of conservative Americans in danger. And so that's the first thing I would say. And then, of course, secondly, right, just this war that Democrat governors and mayors are waging against federal law enforcement. I mean, this is nullificationist behavior. This is successionist behavior. Where they're saying they don't recognize the supremacy of federal law enforcement in terms of protecting the lives and livelihoods of American citizens against a foreign invasion. We've never seen anything like it. And of course, the result of their conduct is that they're allowing illegal aliens to go free and rape and murder their own citizens. So I can't imagine having a leader in a city or a state that would privilege the well-being of illegal alien murderers over their own citizens, but that's where we are right now.
Now, I play that because Stephen Miller usually has one speed, which is faster than anybody else on TV. Now, I'm a pretty fast talker myself, so I don't want to throw stones in glass houses. But I found him to be extraordinarily effective at that lower speed. He made all of his points. They were persuasive. They were dispositive, actually, because he's correct on everything. And bravo, the new Stephen Miller, when he goes on CNN, maybe he's ready for combat. And I don't know who asked the question. And good on Stephen Miller. That was exactly the right answer. Now, not so good on Senator Chris Coons. I like Chris Coons. Guest on this show. Always welcome. He's right about China. He knows what he's talking about the Chi-Coms. And he was on with John Berman. Now, if the Democrats had half a brain, they would run Chris Coons in 2028 because he's normal. And normal people there's a shortage of normal people in the Democratic Party. So Chris Coons is normal. Downside, he's Joe Biden's best friend in the Senate and in Washington, D.C. Maybe his only friend now. And he's the senator from Delaware who replaced Joe Biden. So that's kind of a lead weight around his feet as he tries to swim. But he's thinking about it. He goes on CNN with John Berman and says this, cut number 12.
Do you wish you had done things differently at this point?
Well, John, obviously, if I had any idea that President Biden was going to perform as poorly as he did at that debate, I would have been advising him differently and advocating differently. That debate performance was the first time I saw anything like that out of President Biden. He had been and was a strong and capable president, and he still had strong public performances, interviews, and just the next day went to North Carolina and spoke forcefully at a rally. But I was shocked.
Now, I saw the North Carolina rally, and that's being generous by Senator Coons towards the former president. And perhaps Team Biden kept the president away from Senator Coons, and perhaps they kept him away from everyone in Washington, D.C. But Alex Thompson at the White House Correspondents Association, again, this has stuck with me for 2 days. Cut number 3.
One serious note. To my bones, I believe that reporting and the White House Correspondents Association is as necessary as ever. President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception. But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves. We, myself included, missed a lot of this story.
To my bones, to Hugh Hewitt's bones, the White House Correspondents Association is not necessary. To my bones, the White House Correspondents Association is embarrassment to the media. To my bones, the First Amendment has no provision for the White House Correspondents Association. And to my bones, praising yourself in front of a group of employed people is not really a good look. And to my bones, they ought to knock it off, kill the dinner, and tell Eugene Daniels to get a better tuxedo. Robert Bluey is the president and executive editor of the Daily Signal. Hello, Rob. Good to see you again. I want people to go to the Daily Signal because they'll find out things that they won't otherwise find in the mainstream media. I just found out that North Dakota's governor vetoed a universal school choice bill. What was he thinking?
Hugh, it's great to be with you again. And this is quite surprising because, as you know, there has been a move since COVID to pass universal school choice in states all across this country. And so it's disappointing to see that the momentum was stopped there in North Dakota. And I suppose that with the pressure of parents and others who are concerned about the options for their children, maybe there's pressure that could be applied. But it's a great movement that's taking place all across this country in states where you might not suspect some activity to happen. And so I'm hopeful that more states will go down this path and give parents the choice that they deserve.
No, I know Doug Burgum a little bit, and I know Greg Gianforte a little bit. They're both school choice proponents. I do not know this North Dakota governor. I assume he took over for Burgum when Burgum left office. I assume he was elected as well. What's the deal here? Do they go back at him? Is there any explanation?
Well, there's any number of scenarios in which could be at play here. I mean, sometimes the unions have influence among Republicans as well as Democrats. And so there could be that factor that goes into play. I mean, teachers unions are a powerful entity that certainly have shown their prowess, even in states, red states like Alabama and other locations like that. We've reported on that at the Daily Signal as well. And so not all Republicans are solid in this camp. And in North Dakota's case specifically, and whether or not there could be anything that can be done about it, yes, I do think that if parents speak out and lawmakers feel the pressure, perhaps you could go back and reconsider this. Again, I do think it's worthwhile to keep the pressure on, particularly at a time when our schools are not getting any better, the public schools, that is. You have a situation where reading and math scores are at low points that are quite concerning for the future generations of this country. I understand that there was learning loss during COVID, but the status quo is not acceptable. And in my own personal case, we've decided to opt our kids out of public school because we didn't think that was the best learning environment for them. And sadly, there are a lot of individuals who just simply, because of the zip code they live in and because of the financial resources they don't have that choice. And that's one of the reasons that universal school choice is able to give them those opportunities that they might not currently exist in certain states.
Well, I think I want to recommend to my audience the Daily Signal, like Town Hall, like a number of different conservative center-right websites, bring you stories that we'll never get. I doubt we'll see anything about the governor's veto. We won't see a word about it because it's a school choice issue, and legacy media is all in with the teachers' unions, but I'm glad you reported on it. Rob Bluey, talk to us a little bit about your assessment of Donald Trump's 100 days.
Yeah, Hugh, I mean, I think that there's so much that could be said about this. I mean, certainly in my lifetime, I can't think of another president who has exceeded expectations in all of the things that he has accomplished. I mean, every single day, including Saturdays and Sundays, for those of us who work in the news business, there was no rest. I mean, Donald Trump came in here a much different approach to these first 100 days than his first term. I think on two counts. Number one, he had the personnel in place. He knew who he wanted for these top jobs, both in the White House and all of the different departments. He had the support of people like Elon Musk who could come in and really, change radically the way that government functions and operates. And I think we're going to continue to see that throughout the term. In terms of the policies that he's enacted, I like a lot of what he's done with the executive orders. Here's my concern, Hugh. I think that any president who follows Donald Trump, who happens to have a D behind his name, could come out and wipe clean a lot of those things and simply erase the progress that Donald Trump has helped to make on whether you talk about energy or the economy, whether you talk about keeping men out of women's sports. I mean, you can go down the list. It's really incumbent on Congress to make sure they do as much as they can to codify these into law. And while Republicans still have a majority in the House and Senate, now is the time to act.
Now, Rob, I want to discuss with you a little bit about the border. To me, the most significant thing about the Trump 100 days, and maybe along with the big, beautiful bill, if it passes, the most significant thing about the Trump presidency is that he closed the border and he did it in 3 months. And that the Democrats threw the border open and then said they couldn't close it without legislation. Donald Trump closed it without legislation. I view this as an issue that will haunt Democrats for decades. They will always be the party that threw open the door and said to 20 million people, come on in. Do you think this endures as a political issue, the Scarlet Bee border, is on every Democrat forever?
Well, I think it will, Hugh, because frankly, I don't think they've learned their lesson. I mean, they are still taking a position where they are defending violent, illegal immigrants who are living in our country, and they would rather see them stay here and under this excuse of due process and everything else that you see them trot out. So I think that they're making a mistake by not recognizing the fact that the American people broadly support President Trump when it comes to border security and keeping our country safe. You're absolutely right, though, about what Trump said. He made a promise during the campaign that as president, he would come in and he would enact policies that would shut down the border. And you heard Joe Biden and Kamala Harris repeatedly, including Democrats in Congress, by the way, not just the two of them, say that this couldn't be done. You needed to pass some sort of bipartisan legislation in Congress that was the only way to fix the border security problem. And Donald Trump proved that it was not, that you could do this through the executive branch, through strong enforcement. And that's exactly what he's done. I think not only the enforcement of it, but just simply sending a clear message to those who might consider crossing the border illegally. You're seeing them stop through the Darien Gap in Panama. So it's not just Mexico, the Mexico border. I mean, you're seeing it throughout all of Latin America. And so I think it'll have a lasting consequence. And politically, yes, I do think Democrats will continue to suffer from this issue. That's why I think it's so important for Trump to make sure, again, on this particular one, he follows through on that promise. And I'd like to see him ramp up the number of deportations that are currently not keeping pace with some of the promises that he made during the campaign.
Messaging matters. I mean, messaging matters so much to the people who are considering giving all their money to a coyote and heading north. Rob Bluey, exit question. White House Press Correspondents Association dinner, everyone patting themselves on the back. Have you seen anyone in legacy media, ask any elected Democrat how Trump managed to close the border in 90 days and Democrats couldn't do it in 4 years? Have you seen even one person do that?
No, I have not seen it. The Daily Signal purposely skipped the dinner this year, even though we are very proud now to have a correspondent in the White House press briefing room once again after Joe Biden booted us out 2 years ago. But no, Hugh, I have not seen any reporters ask Democrats that question. And by the way, I love how today everyone's pointing to the fact that Donald Trump has one of the lowest approval ratings in the last 80 years. Why do we think that is? After getting nothing but negative press for most of the past 100 days, what do you expect the American people to say when they're polled on this question? The news media is so biased and so hates Donald Trump so much that, of course, this is what's going to be the consequence of that. And I wish that they would treat Democrats with that equal zealousness that they have treated the Trump administration.
Yeah. I really don't care about the polls. I care about what he gets done or not done. I care about the one big beautiful bill. I care about the fact that the border is closed. He did it. A president can do it. The Democrats were lying for 4 years about not being able to do it, and people have got to remember that. Rob Bluey, great to see you from the Daily Signal. Always a pleasure. Follow Rob Bluey on X at Robert Bluey. Next segment, James Lilacs, our pop culture correspondent, checks in with us to update us on everything pop culture-ish, because somebody's got to do it. I want to play for you a little William Barr. I miss General Barr. I miss his congressional testimony. I love it when he pops up on Fox once in a while. And he had a comment about the judges, one of whom was sheltering, TDA, gang member, another escorted illegal immigrant through the jury door and out the back door to avoid ICE arrest. William Barr on Fox Business with David Asman, cut number 10.
And so I don't think there's any question about this, and I think it's time for zero tolerance and getting back to basics, which are that judges and state officials are still citizens, they're subject to the federal law, and they cannot interfere in or impede the federal function. So I'm 100% in agreement with what's done.
All right, so I just wanted people to know that every lawyer, every serious lawyer I know has said the same thing. Of course you've got to arrest a judge who is aiding and abetting flight from an ICE agent. Of course you have to. And a robe is an invisibility cloak, and that was to the nines. Had to do that. In case you're joining late, I was on Fox with Bill and Dana this morning, got to talk a little bit about the most important achievement of the 100 days. Cut number one.
For more on all of this, let's bring in Fox News contributor Hugh Hewitt. He is host of the Hugh Hewitt Show, and it is great to have you here. One of the things that's been interesting is just how the Democrats have not been able to find their footing. And every week when I do Perino on politics, I look for like a little nugget that says, oh, that's smart, that was good. And Hugh, I don't come up with anything yet. What do you think's going on there?
Well, there isn't much to come up with, Dana. Good morning, Bill and Dana. I want to say I'm very interested that Governor Pritzker went this direction in New Hampshire, comparing the Trump administration literally to the Nazis. He said the Nazis took over a constitutional republic in 3.5 weeks. And my eyebrows went up because Pritzker's a smart guy. He won a crowded primary in Illinois in 2018. He beat an incumbent Republican that year. He won re-election. He's got a lot of experience, Duke guy, Northwestern law, very smart. So when Governor Pritzker embraces incendiary rhetoric, obstruct, destroy, demonstrate, I think to myself, they really have gone rudderless. That term was used earlier in the newscast, and they are rudderless, and they're afraid of AOC. AOC is the Democratic Party. Whether it's Van Hollen or Pritzker or Gavin Newsom, they all realize that they got to beat AOC, and they're unlikely to beat AOC because she's got the energy. And I'll tell you what, that would leave me, if it was my party, in despair. But it's not my party. I'm kind of enjoying with popcorn from the sideline the wreck.
Can you think of...
Play the rest of it. I just wanted to say I am out there with the AOC prediction everywhere. Also want to remind you, I already did this today. I want to tell you, I have switched to consumer cellular, got a new number, and still have my old number, still have my old phone. A journalist curse, right? You just can't ever lose the number that someone might call you with a tip on or a backdoor story. But I got tired of the spam. I got tired of not knowing of spoof calls. I don't get them. The only people that have that number are my kids, grandkids, the fetching Mrs. Hewitt. Only people, not even in-laws. And the reason is I just want to be able to leave a phone on at night and be able to hear from somebody who needs to hear from me. Some of you don't need but there's a benefit, which I was unaware of. Some of you may have received a few text messages asking for money during the last campaign. I don't know about you. I did. I don't generally see did you get any text messages asking for money during the last campaign?
About once an hour?
Yeah, so I'm just saying it's not a bad idea to change your number. It can be inconvenient. You can take your number to Consumer Cellular if you want. And you can get a cheap phone if you want effectively a burner that's not a burner. That's what I wanted. I wanted a number that nobody else had except my family. So that's why I got a second line. But you can switch. And then if you get a new number and you go through the problem of telling like 8 to 10 people what your number is, you'll be off the list. They won't have your number. Don't let anyone, don't give it out too much. Do not give it out too much. A lot of you don't want a second phone. Not very expensive, by the way. Consumer Cellular's got a plan for everyone, including the burner phone that's not a burner phone. All you have to do is go to consumercellular.com/Hugh or call 1-800-411-4454. Tell them you want to switch. Takes 20 minutes or less. You can keep your number. You can keep your contact if you want. You can get a second phone if you want. You can get 2 lines for $60 a month, which is really cheap. Unlimited data. Or you can get very limited data, 8 gigs. That's all you need if you're usually over 50. And it's really cheap. Give them a call. 1-800-221-4454. That music means Lilacs is in the house, as in lilacs.com, where you can find his Substack, Dinner with Andre and James. It's a great, great Substack, and Dinner with Andre and James, very popular. James is my pop culture consultant. So, James, I saw a story today. I didn't read it. I knew you would know the answer. Meghan and Harry call each other M and H. Why?
I don't know. I guess the continuous trial of having to pronounce 2 entire syllables is just too much for them. So why not go into a shorthand of the house? I haven't the faintest, and I have to tell you that my appetite for the doings of either is significantly reduced over what it might be. My baseline interest in the royals is about 0. So to not care about M and H, as they are known, requires negative attention. Mostly what I hear from her are the sort of tauntings that nobody, you think, would want to endure. She makes some green waffles, and people point out that the waffle maker that she used is inconsistent with the patterns of the waffles displayed. Therefore, she's swapping in ringer waffles. I mean, I haven't enough cerebral processing power to care one single iota about that woman does, and I predict marital discord in the end for both M and or H.
James, if you're my pop culture consultant and you're not going to keep up on the royals, what am I going to do?
You're going to have to find somebody who is fascinated with the goings on of people from the royal family.
Okay, let me give you my second question. My second pop culture question. Ellen Pompeo posed for a Hollywood Walk of Fame photo with her family next to her star today. Do you know who Ellen Pompeo is?
No, unless, of course, some skin cells were shed by Mike and they were formed into some Hollywood person whose interests are not quite known to me. The name is out there in the sort of cosmology of people in Hollywood, but no, couldn't tell you. I'm 0 for 2 here, Hugh. I'm hoping that the third...
You are. Now, I looked up Ellen Pompeo for fear that you would not know. She has been the star of Grey's Anatomy since 2005.
Oh, right. Right, Grey's Anatomy, a show actually which I believe precedes television. It was actually created by Foxworth and DeForest, the inventor of the Audion tube. It's been on the air forever. I think like 67 generations of people have been on it. My wife used to watch it for a while. I think my wife watched it for 30 years, but then she finally tired of it. It's one of those eternal shows that'll never go away.
How does a show last for 20 years?
Well, it's a medical show, from what I understand, and there's an endless appetite out there for people being wheeled into rooms while somebody shouts 50 milligrams of ketamine stat. They're the same show to me, always. A disease of the week, a social conscience episode of the week, and then doctors and nurses fumbling in closets. For some people, it's le plus ultra.
Okay, now we come to the great divide, the issue of the day.
All right.
There are shows that the fetching Mrs. Hewitt watches that I don't watch, and there are shows that I watch that she doesn't watch. The show that she is most attached to, in which I have no interest, is called The Handmaiden's Tale. I think, not The Handmaiden's Tale. The Midwife Tale. The Midwife's Tale.
No, it's called The Midwife.
Call the Midwife. That's it. You got it for $10. Does Mrs. Lilacs watch Call the Midwife?
Yeah, I think she watched the first episode, which was tie a little message around the leg of a pigeon and send it off to the midwife. And then there was Telegraph the Midwife. And then I believe there was 7th Floor Light Signals the Midwife, Morse Code, and the rest of it. Call the Midwife is the most recent example of that. And she didn't watch it for a while, but I think she tired of it in the end because essentially at some point in the show, from what I understand, they have to call the midwife. And then the midwife comes. So her favorite show was something set in Scotland with a time-traveling woman who goes back and forth, and consequently, I was dragged on the moors and the heaths and the rocky valleys.
That was a horrible show. I watched it for one episode, and it made no sense. Okay, last obscure television show reference: the Agency is the brand new remake of the French version of it based on the DGI or whatever they called it. Have you watched either the French version or the American version, which is a complete ripoff of the DGI version?
I don't know what the DGI version is, unless in French it means
the Bureau.
The Bureau.
It's called the Bureau.
No, but is it set in France is my question, because I'd be keen to
see
something set. Right. So if it's a French intelligence agency where everyone is sitting around with great philosophical shrugs of the shoulders when they learn that a terrorist attack is about to happen, what can you do? And pulling on
I watched the Bureau because Ambassador O'Brien, who was National Security Counselor, told me it is the best television for actually getting right what the agencies do. And so the American producers just ripped off, down to the sequence of events, but without subtitles. So it must have succeeded. I would recommend it highly. It was fascinating. Did you watch Fauda?
Fauda? No. I have been concluding a show called Mobland, which is on Paramount Network with Pierce Brosnan and Tom Brady. It's a British mob, sort of a Sopranos-like world, but it's much more classy because, of course, it's British. And not Clive Davis. Rupert. No, Rupert Murdoch didn't direct it. Anyway, it's a good show. Between that and Landman, I get my fill of men doing manly things, and after that, it's a little guilt watching of Call the Midwife, which I gotta say.
Well, you and I are both Call the Midwife 0 for 1,000, and I have been waiting on the mobster until after it's my turn to pick a series. But apparently, Call the Midwife goes on forever, and I can't watch Grey's Anatomy. Let me ask you very quickly about Trump's 100 days. Are you happy, sad, relatively?
I'm a little disquieted by the economic turmoil. If I want to think long term, I console myself with that. I'm not exactly crazy about that. We'll see how the Ukraine bid for peace comes out. I'm curious about what's going on with the Houthis. But when it comes to the regulatory assaults, when it comes to cutting the budget, when it comes to cutting the federal government, when it comes to dumping a whole lot of money into ships in the Navy, yeah, about that,
The Canadians sure showed us, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, yes. If you want to absolutely burn your house down because your neighbor was making critical comments about the color you painted it, good going. Love the guys, but not.
We gotcha. You got our number, all right. You get those higher taxes for 4 years. Lilacs from Dinner with Andre and James. Thank you. Go to lilacs.com for Substack and everything else. I want to let everyone know that I've got a Fox News column, Morning Glory. President Trump won't ink a bad deal with Iran. And I wanted to call your attention to it. You can follow me on X. I retweeted it over at X not long ago. It simply makes the case. Every other day, Donald Trump comes out and says we're close to a deal with Iran. And every other day he comes out and says we're going to bomb Iran. And this is just art of the deal stuff. We really don't know. They could strike Iran at any time. And the Houthis had better stop firing at our ships, which they obviously didn't, because the Truman had to take an evasive maneuver, and an F-18 Super Hornet was lost overboard. Thank goodness no one's life was lost, but that's $70 million to the bottom of the Arabian Gulf because of the Houthis, and that's going to upset the president quite a lot because they keep shooting at us, and he sent as many messages as possible. One way to stop the Houthis from shooting at our sailors: bomb Iran. One way. I hope he does it. Want to remind you I'm in the Relief Factor studio. And as I come to the conclusion of today's program, I want to remind you why I'm in the Relief Factor studio. They sponsor it wherever I am. And I think I am actually fairly well committed to exercise for my whole life after not being so until I was 22. So I'm here to tell people who are sedentary, and then having an injury that kept me out for a couple of years. Nastiest hip pointer ever. But you can always come back from injury, and if you're sitting around and you're rehabbing and you don't think you're ever going to get your miles back in, get yourself some Relief Factor and get started. 100 steps tomorrow, 150 the next day, work up to it. It's a new era of podcasting and books on audible.com or iTunes. There's no reason, there's no way to be bored trundling or walking. And some of you are gym rats and you like to hear the loud music in gyms. That's not me. I'm actually listening to Ulysses because my crazy book club decided to do Ulysses because they're sadists or masochists. I guess they're masochists because they have to read it. It's horrific, of course. But Relief Factor gets me out there long enough to wade through Ulysses and long enough to embrace whatever crazy book someone comes up with. I'm here to tell you, Relief Factor will get rid of the minor aches and pain. Don't mask your pain anymore. Just don't do it. Make sure you get Icarian and curcumin, resveratrol, omega into your system every single day. And if you take it every single day, you'll say, thank you, Hugh. $19.95 is the starter pack. Call 1-800-4 and the word relief. 1-800-4-RELIEF. Or go to the website, find that starter pack, less than $1 a day for 3 weeks. You take it 3 times a day for the first 3 weeks, get the levels up, you'll be amazed. You'll absolutely be amazed. ReliefFactor.com. I want to close by saying, when the Wall Street Journal runs a story, the Lakers desperately need a Hail Mary. No one in the NBA knows them to throw out to throw them better. That means the Lakers are going down the tubes. But they won't be relegated. Like the Miami Heat, I think, is in the G League now. And I just want to bring this up again because the Cavaliers swept the Heat. And not only did they sweep the Heat, they beat them by 55 points. That's embarrassing, Pat Riley. You got to do something about that. That's embarrassing. Miami Heat, G League, I think they deserve each other.